So I'm so honored to have my wonderful friend and my brother and my doctor with me on what is going to become the revival of the P40 podcast because somehow it has just been kind of hanging out on the back burner for quite a few months. So this was the perfect occasion to revive it right on the eclipse, Mercury retrograde Gandanta energies that we're in. It feels like they brought us together. I swear these eclipses have really
Yeah.
brought us together, Navodi. I'm so honored. So this is
Yeah.
my special guest, Dr. Navodi, and you're in Maui, right?
Yep.
In Hawaii, and I'm in Fort Kochi, and it's like
Yay.
we're in this living room. I love it. So, gosh, I have a million questions for you. Where to start? I was like, which one should I start? So the first thing that came to me was how or what age, if you remember, did you know you wanted to, or did you know you wanted to get into Ayurveda? I always feel like it's somewhere in our childhood, these callings, right?
The That's a very interesting question. Um, Realistically, like in the tangible prefrontal cortex awareness at 15. For the most part, I was raised in Ayurveda, not so much with the Vedic concept, but I grew up growing my own food. Um, we lived even though I grew up in San Diego, and my house was bordering a canyon, so my father would take me and my brother to the canyon. We would harvest the herbs, make our own tinctures, make our own teas from a very, very, like my whole life, really. And
Wow,
then, yeah, so I grew up that way and all natural. Even if like we were sick, we got homeopathy, we got herbs, we got teas, tinctures like that. We never went to the doctor. The only time I've ever really been to the doctor is when I've broken something.
so
Uh,
lucky.
yeah. So when I was 15, I mean, between 12 and 15, there was definitely like a straying from, I mean, I was still eating natural and organic, but there was definitely like a
Some Doritos,
rebellion. There was a rebellion.
some
Um,
Doritos, Oreos in there somewhere.
no, not even like that. Not with food, just like the, being confused about the world, right?
Okay.
Um, just some of my choices were not the healthiest choices as far as sleeping times and the activities that I was engaging in, right?
Yeah.
Any good teenager. But then at 15, um, through a series of divine grace miracles, I had the realization that I was born into the family I was born into for a reason, and that healing was my path. And so
Yummy.
basically, yeah. And so I basically started studying natural medicine at just about 16, like right when I turned 16, because it was the summer of my 15th year and I turned 16 in November. And so that year I really started shifting my whole goal from high school and public school. I started going to professional training in naturopathy, and through naturopathy and studying of natural medicine, I got into yoga and Ayurveda and Chinese medicine like that.
That's what's so wonderful about your approach is that you combine so many things and you're so masterful at, I mean, you know a lot about many different approaches. It's a super holistic session that happens with you. And how, I'm just curious in all of that, because it sounds like, yeah, it was just like, just woven into the whole fabric of your lineage and your family and your childhood in such a beautiful way that you're harvesting herbs I mean, that sounds like a
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah.
But then how did you make your way to Ayurveda like as the primary
Yeah.
focus?
So realistically, all healing systems are the same. It's based on the universal principles, the five elements being in harmony with the seasons and the cycles. But the true, like when I really shifted my focus into Ayurveda was when I was in naturopathic school. Anyone who's gone to any kind of medicine school or healing school, it's unless you're a trust fund baby or something, you have to still work and pay the bills and eat. And so I was going to school 8 hours a day, working 8 hours a day, studying. So it was incredibly stressful. And
Mm.
during that period of time, me being a Pitta constitution, I gave myself a really bad stomach ulcer, um, where anytime I would eat anything, I would be on the ground in excruciating pain. And to the point where I couldn't eat and I was losing weight, and my ojas, my vitality was diminishing, and I couldn't concentrate. And I was doing everything from the naturopathic perspective um,
Yeah.
to heal it. But modern naturopathy, it's changing, but it's more allopathic nature. Like the way that a lot of the naturopathic schools are teaching is these herbs for this set of symptoms, these things for this set of symptoms. And so I was doing all these things that was aggravating my natural constitution, which I didn't know. So I was actually, while trying to heal myself, making it much, much worse.
Yeah.
And in my naturopathic school, there was some Ayurveda, and I had studied a little bit of it, but I hadn't gone in depth. I had done like
Mm.
a 20-hour foundational course, but I kind of left it in the back burner. And one of my colleagues said, why don't you go see this Ayurvedic physician who's very knowledgeable and who spent 25 years in India doing sadhana, and, very profound person. So I went, and they took my pulse and looked at my tongue and my eyes, and they said, you're literally stoking your fire as high as you can possibly stoke it with what you're doing. Do these things. This is how to balance the constitution. These are the 5 elements, the 6 tastes, to harmonize your gut, your brain. Within 3 days, I stopped having these ulcers that was debilitating on the ground. And within about 10 to 14 days, I never had another ulcer again. My stomach healed, and the simplicity of it was so profound. I completed my naturopathic training because I had invested so much time and money into it. And then I switched completely over to studying Ayurveda full time.
Amazing that it happened so fast, 3 days, and so simple. And
Yeah.
often you often hear stories of people making a career out of something that actually helped them in such a profound way. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, also in order to be able to relate to people, we have to understand experientially, not just knowledge, not just book learning, but in an experiential way to really relate on the depth of that level.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. And do you feel like looking back at that time and then thinking of like when how exciting it was for you to discover it for your own healing? I guess, of course, this is the Scorpio and me wanting to go into the trajectory. Okay, so then how did that lead you into like the passion of it for yourself? Like, how did you go from, how did you make the move out of, because you said you'd already invested in naturopathy, but then to move into
Well,
Ayurveda?
I actually took all the naturopathic principles from an Ayurvedic model. So, we still incorporate it because Ayurveda is the science of the knowledge of life. Veda is knowledge. It's the knowledge of life. And so those principles are universal. They apply to every person on the planet, every culture, every continent. And so being from the West, you can apply the same principles to Western herbs, to tinctures, to homeopathy, to any food, to any given supplement, because in the West, there's so many supplements. And, even those supplements, each vitamin, each mineral, each amino acid, each kind of protein has a different effect on the dosha, on the different digestive organs, on the different bodily systems. So just really using the best of both of them and taking the Ayurvedic principles, the principles of creation, into the naturopathic model.
Mm.
Yes, even with fasting or something like that, that's, from, doing a celery juice fast or something like this, that's going to be beneficial for one constitution in one season, where it's going to aggravate another constitution. And,
Right.
that's part of the challenge with a lot of the naturopathic ways is that do this for everyone anytime, and it's not going to work. It's going to create problems for some and be incredibly beneficial for others.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're saying that because I feel like that's such an important principle in all forms of healing, that one shoe doesn't fit all sizes, and that's one of the things I loved about Carl Jung because he
Yeah.
really was one of the first psychologists to be like, yeah, this is my theory, but the more you know about everything, the more
Yeah.
you know about the world, the more you know about other disciplines, the more you can actually help your clients
Mhm.
because otherwise you're trying to force them into some narrow model that might not be the right thing for them. And I really appreciate that about your work. I see that you really bring that into your work. And I think that's one of the reasons so many people from so many different constitutions, situations, backgrounds, people who've never even heard of Ayurveda, I've brought people to you that they're like, wow, they just click because your your approach is so grounded, and so accessible. And was that something that you had to, do you feel like you've always been like that, or do you feel like you've had to kind of from experience, is that something you've developed to be able to like kind of read like, okay, how to meet people where they are?
It's definitely we're always learning, right? And so the greatest way to learn anything is through failing, right? And so by making mistakes, we don't learn by getting 100% on the test. I mean, we know what we know. The purpose of a test is to find out what we don't know. So yeah, of course I make mistakes, and the greatest teacher is those mistakes, whether it's in academia or in spiritual practice or in a sport or anything, right? And
Mm.
so for sure, there's definitely a learning curve, and I've learned the
Mhm.
most from making mistakes and from what not to do and how to be with other people and communicate. Definitely meeting people where they're at. People, the most important thing in medicine or in anything is people feeling safe and
Yeah.
feeling heard.
Yes.
One of my teachers, Dr. Lod, said if you cannot enter the heart of your patient, you have no chance of helping them in any true way. And
Mm.
so that's the goal, is to be with a person, be with a person. We're not treating symptoms, we're treating people.
Yeah.
And another thing, it's not even treating the person, it's ultimately the word doctor. I love this word. It's Latin, docere, right? It means to teach or educate. So we're trying to educate each person in the understanding of themselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so then they can make the best educated decision about what's right for them.
Mm.
And the most important thing is they learn to trust their intuition. They learn to trust their consciousness in a way that's going to bring them the greatest experience.
Yes. And it sounds like, well, I'm just thinking this whole idea of entering into the heart of the patient. I love that. It's so beautiful. And now with all of this, I think especially in the last, even right before COVID, there's been such a huge movement with trauma-based
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how that's changed your work over the
Oh,
last years.
yeah. That's profound. I mean, the world is in a state of trauma right now. Actually, I think it has been for a very long time. What the pandemic did was bring it to the forefront of everyone's consciousness.
Mhm.
Um, and the lockdowns itself created more. It exacerbated it because a cell in isolation is cancer. Cells need community. When a cell becomes isolated and starts operating on its own away from the whole, it becomes
Mm.
cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
so what we needed more than anything, and it is community, whether it was online and shared community, shared experience, like we could have done global online community,
Yeah.
even if we had to do physical distancing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, with the trauma work in Vedic psychology, I mean, I think Jung went to India, right? And he like hung out with Aurobindo or, like this. And, so a lot of his philosophy is Vedic psychology. It's Vedic philosophy, just in different terms. I think he put it into Western terms for the Western mind. but the principles
Yes.
are very similar.
Exactly. He did. He basically what he said is he reversed the path. So instead of going up, he said Westerners need to like take the elevator down.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
chakras.
Yeah.
Trying-
In and through the body.
Yeah,
Consciousness is
exactly.
in and through the body.
Exactly. He was one of the first to say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so with the trauma work, like I did spend a lot of the pandemic studying with Gabor Mate, who's, you know, the compassionate inquiry path, and that's dealing with the root foundational trauma, and the foundational principle is the same as Ayurveda. The person needs to feel safe.
Yes.
And safety is the most important thing in a world where the politics and the media is trying to create division amongst everyone. People don't feel safe. And so creating a heart space. And what is the heart? It's the seat of prana. What's prana? It's the seat of consciousness. It's the seat of life. And so if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel held by mom, held by father, held by the tribe, we automatically go into a sympathetic fight, freeze, or flight state. And so that's the state of the world right now.
Oh my God. And I didn't even know that you had been studying with him. And I just had that intuition to ask you about him. And just as you were talking about that, I had this flashback to when you and I first reconnected after the pandemic, when you first came back to Amritapuri. And you were in, I have such a vivid memory of this. We were talking about how we could feel that Amma was getting us ready to send us out. Like we didn't know, we just felt like she was getting ready for like what's coming, like that we had to kind of get ready to, and I feel like now I'm just seeing it, looking at her behind you and I'm like, okay, like because she arranges all of this, of course. Like they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do a podcast together. Like, oh yeah, this is okay. So see, that seed was already planted back in 2021 when you came, right? Was it 2021? End of 2021?
Yeah. We got back December 26th, 2020.
Okay. But when you first came back to Amritapuri, when you and I connected,
Yeah.
2021?
Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
January or something.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And I just felt like for some reason, I just like all the pieces are coming into the puzzle is showing up now as we're talking. I'm like, okay, I see what she's doing. Okay. So the heart space, yeah, Krishna Das talks a lot about the heart space too. It's really I think we can't talk enough about that right now with healing and what is happening, and with all of, like you said, we're all in a PTSD collectively from this. And I think it's like we're just now, I think, starting to realize all of the repercussions and how eclipses are great for bringing that up also. I mean, for everything that was suppressed or maybe lying dormant. And that I wanted to ask you, have you noticed during eclipse seasons when people come to you, do you notice a big difference, or probably even full moon, new moon, I'm sure there's different energies, but eclipses especially, have you noticed things become more acute or things that were more hidden come to the light?
Well, one of the main things that I've noticed during eclipses, at least as far as the people coming for consultations during the eclipse season, that basically the 2-week period and the week before and after, is that they're more serious cases.
Yeah.
Like more, like really more serious cases, more autoimmune, more inflammation, and more neurological, which is, you know, the eclipsing of the mind and of consciousness, right? And so that's the pattern I've seen there. And also so far, like just in the last 10 days with the Mercury situation, Mercury's been having a rough 6 weeks, actually. People's just overall general agitation, and I've seen 4 couples break up in the 6-week period with Mercury being in debilitation and then Gandanta. Yeah. And it's about to go retrograde, right? So
yes, on the next eclipse.
Yeah.
Or like right before it. Yeah. Like right.
It goes retrograde on the 1st, right?
Like an April Fool's joke.
Oh, wow. Far out.
Yeah, and I was thinking, because I didn't even ask you ever, like, when did you start bringing the astrology into your
Okay.
practice?
So that's interesting. My first astrology reading was when I was 16. Um, at the San Diego Hare Krishna temple, there was a Jyotisha there, and he gave me a reading. And I didn't pay that much attention to it, but everything he said has come true so far. And then my next reading was in Amritapuri in December of 96 when I first got to India, right after meeting Amma. Um, and that actually kind of changed my life. I guess I was ready because
Yeah.
my vision was I was in naturopathic school still. I was still in naturopathy school. I hadn't started Ayurveda yet. I had another year and a half to go. And the astrologer, basically, I was planning on moving to India and forgetting school and living at the ashram and serving there the rest of my life. And the astrologer's like, that's not really your path. You have to go back to school and you have to do all these things. And I was just like, no way. Like, I met the guru. I'm staying by the guru's feet for the rest of my life. That's it. And after another 6 or 8 weeks there, I was sitting next to Amma's chair and she called me over and she says, "Why are you here?" And I was like completely confused. And it was, one of the only times in my life where I've actually argued with Amma. Um, but Amma told me you're going to naturopathy school for a reason. You're studying medicine for a reason. If you don't study this, what do you really have to offer the world? This is your dharma. And I
Mhm.
said, no, I want to live here and serve you, Amma. I want to serve embracing the world. I want to be part of this. And she says, great, then go to school. I'm like, no. And I mean, we went back and forth. And finally, Amma's like, you're telling Amma that you want to serve and you can't follow a simple instruction.
Oh.
And I was just like, but that's not a simple instruction. Like, that's a whole nother year and a half. I'm ready now. And she's like, no. And so she sent me back. And then I finished naturopathy school, and it had been before I met Amma, it was it was in the forefront of my mind to study Ayurveda. Um, but as soon as I met Amma, I wanted to go to Amritapuri, so I left that behind, and then I finished naturopathy. I'm ready to move to the ashram, and then Amma's like, "But you didn't study Ayurveda yet,"
Oh.
and so then I had to go back for uh, 4 more years. And then finally, when I finished, like literally like months after I finished with my degree, Amma's like, come move to the ashram.
Little did you know that she had like a whole plan for you.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm just force quitting this thing that's dinging in the background here. Hang on. Okay. All right. Yeah, she totally had a plan for you,
Yeah.
clearly.
She has a plan for everyone. I mean, the biggest thing is making ourselves open to receive that plan in the forefront of our awareness and in our heart. And what the concept of nimitta matra, becoming a hollow bamboo, becoming a vessel for the divine to work through. And
Mhm.
ultimately, there's no difference between us and the divine. God's not confused about who God is. We have amnesia. We're confused about who we are. When we truly realize who we are, we're that. I am that, right? Om Tat Sat.
I amnesia. I love that. And so did you always wait, I feel like there was something else I wanted to ask you about the astrology, but I'll come back to that because I don't want to forget to ask you this too. Because okay, I'm so impressed. It's not impressed, that's not the right word. I'm so inspired and moved by your dedication to your sadhana practice, to your sadhana. I'm saying practice because not everybody knows what sadhana is, like your daily spiritual practices
Mhm.
and the discipline. I actually just asked Alma about this
Mhm.
because I, on the other hand, struggle like anything with discipline. So I just finally brought it to Alma, speaking of like the surrendering. Um, and so I feel like, and so many people that come to me, not even as a, as a physical doctor, but coming to me for emotional stress, say they wish, it's just a common complaint of wanting to have more discipline and more routine in their life. And you make it seem so easy because you just do it. And every time I meet with you over the years, I'm always like, because you're so inspiring. And after I have the session, I'm always like, yeah, I'm just going to start tomorrow. I'm going to do it. I always think each time, because your energy is so, like, when you're with someone who's just in that energy, you feel like you can do it. Just like when you're with them, you're like, I can do that. I can stay up all night. I can get up at 3 a.m. because I'm talking to Dr. Nabori. We can do it. And then the next day comes and you're like, okay, well, I guess that didn't happen. So I don't know if there's any like magic tricks you have with that, but I'm sure many people probably complain to you about this, that they see you, they get the prescription, they know what's going to really help them, but like, as Amma says, if you don't do what the doctor says, you're not going to get better. So what could you say to people that really struggle with that? Like they come, they keep coming, they keep getting the prescription, but they have a hard time following through with the discipline.
Yeah. One is just asking yourself why, like what's the blockage, and just questioning it. But there's this concept in Vedanta called Lakshya Bodha, intent on the goal. So we set a goal, like when we're in school, if we want to get the highest marks or just pass the exam and, get a degree, it's about intention. It's about priority. What's important to you? What's priority? And so for me, I don't want to say it's effortless, but it's a joy for me. And I think this is part of it, really, is, with spiritual practices, just like food, just like with diet, just like with anything, there's 8 billion plus people here. That's how many paths there are to the divine. And so each person creating a way that brings joy to their heart, it brings inspiration to their consciousness, so that their relationship with themselves and with nature and with the divine is a celebration. It should be a celebration. I mean, the Sanskrit word lila, it means divine play. It's supposed to be a love story, a musical, a comedy, an art gallery, a poetry slam. It's designed, the creation was designed for beauty. The 5 sense organs and the organs of action, they're all designed for love and beauty. So every action we do should be designed to create more love and beauty in ourselves and in our community and in the world. And so when we're inspired by something beautiful, magical, loving, divine, it does become almost effortless. And Amma says it all the time, when there's love, there's no effort.
Yes.
Right? So it's about creating, and it doesn't matter what you do. Like everyone thinks, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. It doesn't matter. Like just do something with that loving, devotional attitude. And each person's, part of the Dharma is finding out what that is, finding out what inspires them, what makes them tick and motivate them. And, that's sometimes if we don't know, the Dharma is to find out what the Dharma is.
Right. And then there can be the more complicated situation where, like in my case, for instance, like that I love sadhana, it brings me so much joy, and I love being up early in the morning, but I love sleeping so much too.
Mm-hmm.
They both bring me joy in different ways, because it's in my horoscope. Probably you see this in people's horoscopes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, I think, and maybe sometimes what I'm hearing, what you're saying is that we might have an idea of what we think is the right way to go about it, and maybe it has even brought us joy, but maybe at certain times in our life we need different things, and we have to just trust that pathway. Wait, so now how, I never asked you this. How did you become the doctor for Amma? Because I just knew you after that was already happening. I never asked you.
Yeah, Amma did that. I mean, basically, like I went to naturopathic school. I went to Ayurveda school in 2003. On the beginning of the summer tour, Amma told me, she actually called me and said, you finished school, right? And she didn't call me on the phone. I was like, wow. No, I was next to the chair, and she's like, you can you want to come live at the ashram, right? And yeah. And she's like, you can come now. You can finish I mean, I didn't really have much stuff. I never had much stuff. And so it was easy to live in the ashram without much stuff. But she said, you can come for the 50th birthday. That was that big giant celebration in Cochin with 1 million people over 5 days. And come to the ashram. You can come live here now. And when I first moved there, I wasn't doing Ayurveda. I was working in the garden. I was doing some recycling, doing some massage. And then I believe it was Europe tour of 2004. So it was I had already been there for, maybe 16 or 18 months, 16 months. And on the Europe tour of 2004, someone else had asked Amma about me doing it. I hadn't even asked Amma. I was happy working in the herb garden and, doing other things. And Amma said, yeah, that's why you went to school. Like when you get back, start seeing people, start treating people. And that was it. It wasn't, anything other than Amma's grace and Amma's instruction.
Instruction, yeah. And did you see something in your horoscope that changed significantly around that time? Did you go back and look at that?
I haven't. I actually haven't. So here's how I actually got into astrology.
Yeah.
Okay, so we going back to that. After the astrologer told me that this is what I was supposed to do, I didn't look at my astrology anymore. I basically decided that my life would be up to Amma, and like Amma's grace overrides the planets and everything else anyway, and my karmas and whatever. And so I just didn't look at it. And then during my Sati Sati, I didn't even know I was in Sati Sati. And this time Amma actually did call me. She called me to her room. I was in the middle of the night because Amma does things that for God, there's no day or night. So someone came to my flat, woke me up in the middle of the night. I got to go hang out with Amma. But she told me I was in this period of Sati Sati, and it was a very difficult period. And Amma gave me this whole set of instructions to follow very specifically. Yeah. I think this was in 2006. And
what? I'm in Sati Sati. I'm like, what did she tell you now?
And then basically she said, Amma knows that you're not following the astrology. And she said that you need to start learning astrology. And from the Vedic perspective, and even from Hippocrates said, the physician who doesn't know the movement of the stars doesn't know their patient.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And so and Hippocrates, he says the same thing as Ayurveda does about food too. The diet, the food is the medicine. Okay. With Ayurveda, it says, you can give 1,000 medicines on the most auspicious nakshatra. And if the diet and lifestyle is not correct, the medicine's going to be useless. And so based on Amma's instruction, I started studying predominantly medical astrology. Now, obviously, with that, you have to learn the foundation and the basics of everything else too. And, that's constantly expanding. I feel like a perpetual student. Like, I feel like even with Ayurveda naturopathy, it's like, I feel like I'm looking at the tip of the iceberg's reflection. It's such a vast reservoir of knowledge and consciousness that and even with every person I see, every patient, every astrology reading I do, I feel like I'm the student. I mean, on some level, I'm like, I should be paying them. They shouldn't be paying me. Like, I'm learning so much from every person that walks in. And so that's how I started on the astrology path.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And so you then went more into the medical astrology. Yeah. And when you're doing a consultation, so you look at the client's chart before they come, you ask and take, And what would you, I guess, there's not really generalizations because that's the whole point of astrology, but I wonder if you have any, I guess maybe a better question would be like, have you noticed from all of your consultations, like, are there some things across the board, I guess, because you've also written some books, and I'm wondering, like, there must be some way that you extract, like noticing like, wow, these are like, and I think there's two things that happen. I think one, like, because of your karma, your horoscope, you attract a certain kind of people, obviously, right? And that depending on what the transits are at different times, different people too. But within that, I just wonder if there's kind of this across the board, like you notice there's things that really seem to help everyone. Because I noticed, like, for instance, like dance is something I know that you are very, which of course I am all for that. And I love that that seems to be like, I've just kind of intuited that. I don't even know if that's true. I just kind of probably prescribe that for a lot of people.
Yep.
I wonder if there's other things like that, because those are kind of nice to share for people who haven't had a consultation with you, like just kind of some general things that you think that generally help and things that generally cause trouble.
Yeah. I would say the two most important things across the board that help everyone. And without these, I don't know that I would want to be here. Okay. One of them is music and dance. Okay. The music is the vibration of the universe. When I was in Colorado and New Mexico studying Ayurveda, I was also learning West African drumming at a place called Bantaba in Boulder. It's African drum and dance studio. And the motto on the door, it's a their slogan or their aphorism. It says, if you have feet, you can walk, you can dance. If you have a voice, you can talk, you can sing. A day without song and a day without dance is a day without the creator. So I dance every single day, at least to one song, whether I'm cooking or doing the dishes or walking in the forest, doesn't matter.
Amazing.
If I'm driving in the car, unless I'm listening to a podcast, the stereo's bumping.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what music you listen to, whatever inspires you. Okay? Then the other thing is, when we were born, I mean, essentially we were tripping, like psychedelically tripping. Our pineal gland was wide open and we were making a neurohormone called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, which God has made into certain plants on the planet so people can go have an experience without meditating. You know, meditation, self-reflection, being completely in a state of parasympathetic bliss, we produce that on our own. Our first 3 years, unless we've gone through some extensive trauma, our pineal gland is open and we're making the God molecule, DMT. And so everything we perceive is energy patterns and vibrational patterns, right? And we learn through osmosis. We learn through the environment. We absorb how to function in the world through the environment. And that's why the first 7 years are absolutely crucial. Basically the Christian church said, or the Catholic church said, give us a child for the first 7 years, we'll make the person. That's literally our foundation. And Vedic says the same thing, that first 7 years is foundational. That's why we teach the children the Dharma. But basically, what does a child have that we start to lose as an adult? Curiosity. Be curious. The moment we stop being curious, we think we know something and we're not open to the whole experience of creation. And so dancing, singing, music, and curiosity. Be curious. Be curious. And even with our own thoughts, our own mind, like if I'm having a thought come up, and just because I do a lot of sadhana, because I do a lot of practice, because I meditate and do mantra, it doesn't mean that I don't have difficult thoughts. Okay? I don't want to say negative, because when I examine my thinking, I benefit from that. I question where it's coming from. But if I have emotions or thoughts come up that are less than what my goal is, if they're not loving, kind, benevolent thoughts, I question, where is this coming from? Is this mine? Is this a familial karma? Is this a familial patterning? When did I learn this? When did I accept this as being something that should be in my consciousness? Do I believe it? Then I examine it. And if it's not of service to consciousness, if it's not of service to the Dharma to love, I do something to release it. I do some kind of ritual to release it. I'll write it down on a piece of paper, put it on the altar. I'll dance. I'll put on some music, dance, shake it out, like you're releasing, like a gazelle after it escaped the cheetah, it shakes. to release
Yes.
that, a somatic experience, to release it somatically in and through the body. And then I'll
So,
either burn it or I'll bury it. Usually I burn it. I like fire.
yeah. Yeah.
So I do something to release that
That energy
limiting
transfer.
belief or pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you just incorporate that so spontaneously and naturally. I remember you and I really connected about music too. Like we were talking about Stevie Wonder, the As song,
Hmm.
first consultations, and that is one of the songs I can bring in the ashram. That's Western music that they allow for my authentic movement class. Um, and this is actually a good segue because I did want to tell everybody about our class that we're going to be doing on April 7th, Sunday, April 7th, where we're going to be bringing together a lot of the stuff we're talking about in this conversation, but we're going to do it more in depth and more specifically targeted toward each of the 12 ascendants to help you guys navigate the eclipse season of 2024. The rest of this eclipse season, then also this is going to give you the follow-up in the fall. So we're putting this together to really give you that mind-body connection, because everything we were just especially what we're talking about right now, like with trauma and with psyche and with music and with movement and the psychology behind all of that, like it's so essential now, I think, that we have these practices, these really, it's just going back to play, as you're saying, but we've lost touch with that. We've lost the spontaneity and the joy and the curiosity around that. So I think astrology is such a great grounding tool to remind us like of our unique pathway back into that, and to look at the eclipse as an opportunity for the awareness to dawn again, where there was a blind spot. That's really what eclipses are designed to do. I mean, we're always like, oh my God, they're so malefic. And they are intense. And yeah, they do bring, like you said, they can bring things that were hidden to the surface. Things can get more acute, but that's just to get our attention, ultimately for the healing, right? So, as you have noticed, and I've certainly noticed in my practice, that people need more support during the eclipses. Things do come up, and it's often not right at the time of the eclipse. It's often right before.
Yeah.
And then like times it's amplified to quite an intense degree after, for better or worse, however it plays out. But I noticed that it's like the aftermath of the eclipse, and everyone starts to come in like, okay, what was that? What just happened? My life's upside down. Like you said, breakups, people moving, changing jobs, like big, like huge plot twists happen, right?
Yeah. So this is an experience I had just on this eclipse. Okay. So Mercury is Gandanta. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I went out to the whales. So in Maui, it's whale season. They're getting ready to move north for their annual pilgrimage. But I've been going kayaking with the whales. And so the morning after the eclipse, when Mercury did go Gandanta, we're going out and the ocean is completely still. So Gandanta is drowning, right? Mercury capsizing. So I've got the kayak filled with our cloth bag and our water and our snorkels and all the equipment in the kayak. And the ocean is totally still. And as we're going out of nowhere, this wave comes, and it's been still. Like we're watching it, like getting ready for 20 minutes. There's no waves. Capsizes the entire kayak. Everything goes into the wave. Like our stuff's all over the seashore. Like total drowning scenario. Like, I don't own a vehicle, so nothing can happen to my car, but that was my vehicle.
Yeah. Right. So it's going to show up some way, like it's going to find a way to express that energy. But at least it was kind of a mystical, magical. I mean, you've had so many mystical experiences with these whales this week. That seems to be your eclipse, like dancing with the whales, swimming with the whales. But that's just an example of how something does come out of nowhere often. Like you can't predict it. And that's why I actually like to do workshops after not before, because we don't know. We can't predict. And that's not the way to do it. You can't predict what's going to happen with eclipses. Like I've
Yeah.
tried many
Yeah.
years and I've always failed. And like you said, fail again, fail better. But that's taught me to wait until the end of the eclipse season. And then all of these insights come, then all of these epiphanies and these aha moments come to the light. So it's a
And
great time.
do you find that it comes to more fruition during the second eclipse season in the fall? Like what's happening now, how that correlates to the fall eclipses?
Yeah, it's kind of like a continuous story because like these eclipses were from last fall, and then I'm
Right.
sure there's gonna be definitely it's going to be like the next level. It just seems like it's like the next level, the next level, the next
Yeah.
level until it's finished, and I mean until it changes signs. But
Yeah.
but I'm sure you agree because we've spoken about it. So I'm sure you agree. Because of the Gandanta energy of these eclipses, that it's like, I mean, even in Western astrology, Chiron is just
Yeah.
sitting right on this next eclipse. So there's something really profound. Speaking of healing, there's something really, really, I think these are like, I can even just feel it in Alma's energy lately too. Like these are just like game-changing eclipses.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, this whole year, right?
yeah, this year is so intense.
You know, the political realm, the environment realm. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
America having a major election with Pluto return.
Yes. And another eclipse path
Yeah.
hitting
Right.
directly. Yeah, that
Yeah.
comedy. Like the last time we had that was 2016, and look what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, yeah, and the Pluto return. And it just feels like, I don't know, have you had any kind of, because we're just coming off, as we're recording this, we just had that full moon lunar eclipse in Hasta
Yep.
Nakshatra. Which has helped. So I was wondering, like, if you have a sense, because some people are saying, some astrologers are predicting, oh, this is going to be the beginning of the next kind of health scare, or maybe things will come out about previous health scares. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, I mean, definitely it affects health, but I'm a perpetual optimist, right? And so I think it's like revealing of new healing, like maybe new medicines coming out, especially in the mind field. And um, I haven't had time to do a deep dive, but I heard recently that the FDA has approved some more psychedelics for, PTSD and clinical. I think they finished the clinical trials and like going back to what they were working on in the 50s and 60s before they were banned into real profound healing. So that's one thing. And then in May, Jupiter is going to move, which I think is going to be also quite beneficial.
Yeah.
Give some grace when Jupiter's in Taurus. But I do see like a lot of new ways of healing and new ways of understanding and more acceptance of the natural ways. So it's kind of like moving forward back. We're going back to the ancient ways. I think there's going to be much bigger acceptance of that. I do think also because everything's connected, some of the people who are running for office are trying to bring to light a lot of things in the medical field that don't work. And that's part of what eclipses are about, is looking at the shadow, looking at what's not working so we can bring that to light. And so I think it's going to be a really good time, actually. As far as like, another pandemic or anything like that, I don't see that. I think there's going to be a lot of fear around that, and the only real cure for fear is more love. I think there'll be a lot of media stuff around that, right? Trying to create more fear and more division. But I don't see it's not like 2020 when Saturn was in Capricorn. I don't see that happening. I think Saturn works much better in Aquarius, and Jupiter and Saturn have separated, so that's beautiful. I don't see it being. I don't see a negative, difficult.
And Saturn being in the sign of the 100 doctors. I mean, the
Yeah,
nakshatra,
Shatabhishek. Yeah,
right? That helps
yeah.
trying to bring healing. And I feel, yeah, I mean, Hasta, I think I'm just getting this intuition now too. I think that is what brought us to collaborate, because it is that it's a moon-based
Yeah.
nakshatra, but it's also Virgo, so it's healing and it's the mind. So I think
Yeah.
it really, I think this is the time right now. And then even when we get into the Pisces energy, I mean, Virgo Pisces
Yep.
is so much about
Yep.
the psychosomatic,
Yeah.
psychosomatic connection.
Yeah. I mean,
So
with Pisces, and also Venus is moving into Pisces, right?
yes,
And so like that's deep in as far as the dhatus goes, that's rasa, that's lymph, there's more lymph nodes in our gut and brain. So our gut intuition, our gut brain axis should be coming into more of a unified field, a more of an intelligent, conscious awareness.
oh, I love that. Oh, good. That feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a bad feeling either about it. I feel like it's an opportunity to heal. I also feel like Hasta is such a powerful star for manifestation and like
Mm-hmm.
healing with the hands. Maybe there's
Yeah.
going to be more hands-on, like understanding the power of hands-on healing in a
Yeah.
different way. And just understanding the power of our minds. I think this is coming more and more to the light, like the power of the unconscious, the power of intention, the power of, okay, well, before I go off on that tangent, I know I was going to ask you about your biggest mentors. Of course, I know a couple of them we've already spoken of, but I know Zach Bush is a big influence on you recently, or at least as far as
Mm-hmm.
I know, recently. So if there's any that you want to share, like, and maybe things you've learned from them that have really helped you or that you feel could help people listening.
Well, with Zach, I mean, he does have some, as far as his staff goes, he does have like an Ayurvedic practitioner on his staff. But like everything he talks about is Ayurveda. It's about the unified field of consciousness. But the biggest thing that Zach teaches is the soil in the gut and the gut microbiome, and that's what Ayurveda teaches, the Agni. And all disease begins in the gut. All disease is a dis-ease is starting with our gut intuition, our natural way of thinking. And, you know,
Like ignoring
nature.
the gut.
Hmm?
Like, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, when you said that, it made me think of what happens when we ignore our gut
Right.
instinct.
Yeah. Every
Mhm.
time in my life that I have not listened to my gut intuition, I've had to learn a very difficult lesson. So I learned through not listening to listen,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah.
About
Um,
that connection about the microbiome and also like your gut, like as the like that ignoring a feeling that you have in your gut and how that also is going to mess up your microbiome.
so check this out. This is phenomenal. Okay. Our gut microbiome is the universe. We're literally just a flesh carrying bag of virus and bacteria. We have more virus and bacteria in our gut than there are stars in our visibly known universe. And they're all functioning in harmony with each other. What happens when they're not in harmony? Chaos ensues within
Mm.
our body. And that's what dis-ease is chaos. Okay.
Mhm.
And so when we have like all the Vedic practices, all yoga, all Ayurveda is to keep this in balance. And so our gut intuition, what does it tell us? Be loving and kind. Okay. Not just to ourselves, but to the earth. And here's really where we went wrong, or went into the dis-ease process. When we defined Homo sapien sapien, we defined what nature is, and we literally wrote ourselves out of the equation.
Yeah.
Everything in creation, except for what humans are and do and make, is nature. Except that's ridiculous. Everything here is nature. And so we've literally separated ourselves. And so that's not sustainable. That's what a cancer cell does. It separates itself.
Yes. I
Okay.
love this.
So restoring love internally and externally. So in and through the body. It's I mean, we have to use language to define things, but body, emotions, thoughts, and spirit. It's one unified field. And when this is where Western medicine has a problem because they separate it, just like we separated ourselves from nature. So it's all about restoring that. So Zach is doing the world the biggest favor ever. Like he's literally putting all the science, like proven medical science. He was a triple board certified medical doctor. He was creating chemotherapy and saw that he was destroying life. He was one of the top chemo creators, and he realized he was going the exact wrong way. And so he's doing phenomenal work in regenerating the topsoil. And now his team has proven this is phenomenal. So the CO2, we need CO2. We're carbon-based life forms. The biggest problem isn't that we have gasoline cars now, because, without going into the whole science of that, not that we shouldn't have a Tesla car or whatever, but to get in materials to make the Tesla battery or any electrical car battery on some level is very, very harmful to the planet. I'm not saying don't have your electric car, but we have to figure out better ways. But even with the non-renewable resources like gasoline, for polluting the atmosphere, we've created non-polluting cars from gasoline. And the biggest reason that there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere is because what we've done to the topsoil. Okay. 200 years ago, we had 3 to 6 feet of topsoil on the planet. Now we have 3 inches of topsoil, and we're polluting it with pharmaceutical drugs, with 3,000 endocrine life disrupting chemicals that we spray on our food and our earth surface every single day. So that's disrupting life. Then we put that in our body, it disrupts the microbiome, it disrupts life in our body, it disrupts our ability to think properly with intelligence. It disrupts our ability to feel each other, to feel the field around us.
Oh my God, yeah, it's so like we're literally uprooted. We have no soil.
Yeah. Literally uprooted, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so heartbreaking, but true.
But so here's the thing, like, this is why I'm perpetually optimistic. So our science on this planet is so phenomenal. We have geniuses here. We have all the technology and all the science that if we agree, the human race agrees that we want to stay here and be here and celebrate this beautiful place, they've proven that within 7 years, we have to do it essentially now. But within 7 years, we can clean the ocean completely. We can remove all the plastic in a few months. We can regenerate the topsoil. They've done micro tests in the rainforest of Brazil, where they rejuvenated the topsoil in 2 years. They've done microplots. Like, literally, we can undo everything we've done. Now, that may or may not be the purpose of us being here. Now, so we have that potential. What do we need? Love. Love is the only medicine that's going to cure all of our problems. Okay. It's not going to happen in a political office unless their hearts wake up. Okay. But in the global big picture, there's 2 aspects to it. One is that we've had 5 mass extinctions on this planet, okay, before we ever got here, that we had nothing to do with, okay? Way worse environmental catastrophes, if you want to call it, but it's the will of God. So in the event that we don't make it and we go extinct, every time there has been a mass extinction, the biology and life on this planet has grown so exponentially beautiful and magnificently. It keeps getting better and better and better. So, and other than the cockroach, there's been no species that has survived all 5 mass extinctions. I kind of have the joke that God incarnated as a cockroach to witness creation over and over again.
Is that right? The cockroach is the one that survived. Oh my God.
So, that would be okay. And then, but we can only do this through form. So, I mean, maybe there's other dimensions where we do this too, but we can only meet like this through form. So it's really nice having a form, and it's such a beautiful planet. It's nice being here to participate. So it'd be great if we all decided that we want to stay here and continue the human race. But it requires love. Okay.
It requires love.
So, so Zach is one who's great inspiration. Some of my great Ayurvedic teachers, Dr. Vasant Lad, who, you know, whether he is or not, in my mind, he's the incarnation of Lord Dhanvantari, the god of Ayurvedic medicine, who's an incarnation of Vishnu. He just like infused the love of Ayurveda into me. And
Aw.
you know, anyone who sits with him, it's just a mystical experience.
Mm.
And most of the main teachers in the United States, I've had the blessing to study with early on, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Ayurveda really hit the mainstream. I've gotten to study with Dr. Robert Svoboda, with Vamadev Shastri, David Frawley, with Alakananda, John Duyard, Sarita Shrestha. You know, so I've had incredible blessings. And then throughout India, studying with various Vaidyas, and then, you know, just Amma's direct guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. The ultimate love doctor, love doctors, medicine women. Well, that seems like a beautiful note to wrap this conversation. I keep talking to you forever, but I know but before we go, I want to just let everyone know that you are offering online consultations and you can be reached. I'll put it in the show notes, but dr.nabodi@gmail.com. And I highly recommend it. And
I also have a Facebook page, Dr.Nabodi. There's a lot of educational articles on there, and
oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And my Instagram page too, same thing, Dr.Nabodi. There's just, you know, for the most part, it's for education and upliftment.
Yeah, so they're very uplifting. Your IG is very uplifting. Beautiful pictures of whales and rainbows too. And along with lots of great recipes as well.
Yeah.
And of course our class, which is April 7th, Psyche, Soma, and the Stars. And it's going to be 12 p.m. Eastern. And we'll have the link under the show notes as well. And you can reach out to either one of us if you have any questions about the class, but we're really looking forward to it. And it's our first official collaboration. We just did a really nice session in the Project 40, and we had so much beautiful feedback from that we thought, okay, we need to continue this because people say, we want more, we could listen to you guys. I think someone even said they wanted a podcast. So
yeah.
So here it is. and then the class. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah.
And and is there anything else that I know I did have one more question. I always wanted to ask. I always like to ask, is there a question that you wish someone would ask you that nobody ever asks you?
There's nothing that comes to my mind. But how are you?
Yeah, that's true. Nobody asks you that probably because everyone always comes to you with their situation. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah. Except my answer is kind of like Vedantic. Occasionally someone does ask me that, and my answer is I am. Because that's actually the only thing that I can guarantee is true.
Okay.
Because
nobody asks.
Everything is maybe my answer is too vague, but because one moment you're one way, the wind blows and you're the next. Like the mind, how I am, which I am are we talking about? The personality or the divine part? So we can play with it on any level.
Or we could ask about different parts of your horoscope. Like, how's this part? How's your Gemini? How's your Scorpio? Yeah. I know. It's like, also, I think that's why most people, when they're asked that question, they say, I'm good. Because like, it's such a vast question. Like either that or you're going to like get, TMI, like, okay, but I didn't really want to know the whole story.
Yeah. No, I actually, unless I'm in session, even my friends, whatever, I don't ask how they are unless I actually have the time. If I have the time to sit there and listen to them and be present for them, but I don't ask that casually. Exactly.
I think as therapists, we can't ask that question casually. I hope I don't do that. That would be really rude because I know if I ask it, it's like, it's our dharma to really like care about the answer. We can't just like, how you doing? All right, bye.
Yeah. And how we're doing in any given day, any given moment is so multidimensional and multifaceted, right? So
Yeah, beyond. And that's why I think we've all been programmed just like, good,
yeah,
okay, hanging
yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Did I forget anything? Because it is Mercury station. I'm sure I
Yeah.
did.
If we did, then we talk about it next week.
Exactly. Okay, right, exactly.
Yeah,
We'll put it in the notes. The beauty of show
yeah,
notes is editing. Okay, great.
yeah.
Aw. Well, it's been so good speaking with you as
Yeah,
always.
absolutely.
And I'm really excited about our class.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to be continued.
Yay.
Thanks so much, Dr.
Okay.
Navood.
Namaste.
Hey, Jim.